to Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Redesign Your Life today. I'm Daniel Kobryner, mental fitness coach, and this podcast, it's about having deep conversations with guests having had big transformations in their lives and showing everybody, every one of us, that transformation is possible at every stage in our lives. And without further ado, let me introduce a very special guest. And I'm really very happy to have you there. It's Michael Stone. So Michael is an organizational development facilitator, and he's got a huge career in this area. He's done coaching courses. He's done a lot about meditation. He's written some books. He's uh, he's really an expert in this field, and so so happy to have you, Michael. And the first question is, this was a very brief intro, so if you want to kind of run us through your path, even from the start and what you've done, this would be great.
Sure. Well, I'll give you some background, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I love doing podcasts, especially since I have a new book out.
Mhm.
But just to go back to the foundation of what brought me into doing transformational work was I'm basically a poster child for trauma. Both my parents were at World War II at Pearl Harbor. My father was a fighter pilot. My mother was in the Women's Air Force. And they were both affected deeply by the bombing, and right in the middle of the bombing. My father pretty much went inside and disappeared, and my mother was mentally uh, impacted by it. For the first 2.5 years of my life, she kept trying to kill me different ways and managed to not do that. And then I found her hanging at 2.5. So
Oh,
that was my start. I had many other traumas, abuse, and several stepmothers that were pretty abusive. I found my dog hanging also at 7 years old. He had tried to get over the fence, and my parents had tied him up. So I came home from school and found him hanging on the fence. And then in my early 30s, I had a 4-year-old and beautiful wife. My wife was raped and murdered in California, and they didn't put the person away. And for 42 years, I lived under the suspicion that I was the person that killed my wife until DNA evidence finally cleared my name. So that gives you a little bit of the impetus for transformation. During that time, I had many events. One of them was a thing called the S training, which became landmark education. And I had this epiphany in my early 20s, 1972 actually, that I left that training and I was walking through San Francisco and I had this, oh my God, you mean I'm responsible for my own bloody life? And it was a huge awakening. Um, and I led those programs for many years, probably 40 years, mostly the wisdom course and um, other programs. At the same time, I uh, became an organizational development consultant. I had a firm that I taught a program called Presence, Power, and Performance very early in the, meditative arts and the looking inward for our growth. So I went through that whole phase for 35 years. I also was very interested in um, movement and the body. And I meant in 74 Gabrielle Roth. I became a five rhythms teacher, which is a moving meditation practice, going through different aspects of our development and through movement. And so that was a big part of my training. And then I was interested in shamanism, so I started studying shamanism. I went to the Amazon, studied with different teachers, studied was with Sandra Ingerman and certified, began teaching programs that included all of these things together. And then about 10 years ago, I met a person named Thomas Hubel, who's an Austrian mystic and teacher on the leading edge of trauma. And he said this one thing. He said, "We're all traumatized." And I went, "Oh my God, every issue I've worked on, from climate change to personal development to racism, enslavement, all starts with trauma. And if you don't think you're traumatized, you're not awake, because we live in individual and familial, collective trauma, ancestral trauma, historic immigration trauma. It's all living in our body." And so I became very fascinated with that. And I'm in the process, I'm on the Shift Network, and I was the host and creator of the Wisdom Summit, Shamanic Wisdom Summit for 8 years. Had a radio show for 17 years, and that's a little background. But all of it led up to this looking at trauma as a path for growing our soul and soul integration. And so that's been the heart of my work for a long time. And trauma is a very misunderstood, it's probably the most misdiagnosed, misunderstood source of suffering on the planet. And so that's where my focus is now, is in the area of trauma.
Wow, what a what a story, Michael. I have to say, I'm very moved by your story. I mean, first, the trauma you experienced personally, first as a very, very young child,
Mm.
then this story with your wife. I mean, it's like, wow, and the question, Michael, is how does one kind of, I don't know if healing is the right word, but how do you kind of overcome these experiences that this which are like so terrible.
Yeah, Daniel, overcoming is a misunderstanding of trauma. You don't overcome trauma.
Okay.
You integrate trauma.
Okay.
So, first of all, it's important for people to realize what trauma is. And the first thing is to recognize that it's not the thing that happened. And that's really important. If it was the thing that happened, you'd be stuck with it. It's
Hmm.
what happens in you when the thing happens.
Yes.
And that's really important, because that we have the capacity to change. So when I experience trauma, uh, there's the event, and then there's the what happens in me. How does it impact me? And then how do I adapt to that trauma? So we all have ways that we adapted to trauma early on. Let's say in the early development, a lot of our trauma is early developmental, but it's also ancestral and it's also collective. But if you look at early developmental, if we weren't felt, seen, heard, held, and protected by by a caregiver that looked us in our eyes with love and empathy, and connected with us, well, that's called co-regulation. That's how we learn to regulate ourselves. Well, many of us did not have that. I didn't have that. My mother would put a pillow over my face if I cried. And so um, you know, so I adapted. By my way of adapting was acting out, um, was being a rebel. I early on I had many addictions. I was drinking and smoking at 9 years old. Stealing cars at 12. So, I acted out. I was a rebel. Uh, but there are always ways that I've become a rebel in my teachings in many ways. I've been ahead of the curve in numerous things, like bringing movement into organizations in the 70s and 80s was not something that had ever been done. And now bringing trauma into organizations and seeing how an organizational system is very much like a family system. So, but there's ways that we adapt. We may become the pretty one or the smart one or the helper um, in order to, because it wasn't safe. And so we need a safe environment in order to integrate and learn how to self-regulate. And so that's a big part of the work that I do today is really, I call myself a trauma integration facilitator. Um, but use a lot of things from shamanism, from personal growth, from my organizational work, to work with individuals and to work in groups because we were wounded in relationship.
Mhm.
And since we were wounded in a relationship, it just always made sense to me that you need to heal in relationship. And
Mhm.
so I do trauma circles. I get together small groups, 12 to 18 people for 4 to 6 months long, and on a weekly basis, work with them, create safety, create opportunities for them to hear other people about their story. And you hear somebody say, I don't feel lovable. I feel like I'm a fraud. I'm scared all the time. I'm anxious. And you hear other people say that, and I think, I thought I was the only one that felt that way. People read my book, Traumatized, a love story, healing the wounds that separate, alienate, and marginalize us. The common response is, I thought I was reading a story about you. When I got done, I realized I was reading a story about me.
Mhm.
So, we're all in this human dance that we're in. We're all connected and we all have these areas. So for me, trauma is an opportunity for soul growth. It isn't a mistake, it's an intelligence. And that's part of what's unique about my approach to it, I think. And that's becoming more widely understood. But to honor trauma as an evolutionary intelligence that's been growing for hundreds of thousands of years, and that in an overwhelming situation, trauma, the nervous system, fragments and disperses a part of our essence, and it becomes lodged in the body as tension or as numbness. And so, uh, rather than trying to get rid of it, we need to feel it. When you get rid of it, you've already abandoned a part of yourself. When you had the trauma experience, you abandon some part of our essence. So if you're trying to get rid of something, you're abandoning abandoned parts, which people have a hard time understanding. You have to turn towards the traumatic experience. You have to turn towards the fear, towards the rage, towards whatever those things are, and feel them in your body. You cannot heal trauma with talk therapy. Trauma is in the body. It must
Mhm.
be somatic awareness of your interiority. And so that's a huge part of healing is awareness and presencing, which we can talk more about, but I don't want to take over your show here, Daniel. So I'm
No, 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 no. I mean, you
to
see, I'm
add
listening to
questions.
you, and it's fascinating. And I have to say, a lot really resonates with me, Michael. You see, I just told you just before the show. Now I'm a mental fitness coach. So what is it? I'm helping people and covering what's holding them back from living the best life they can. And this starts with this positive intelligence framework, which is about uncovering the saboteurs which are running on autopilot. And it's exactly what you described. These are actually these are kind of programs which we develop from a very early childhood as a survival mechanism. So I think it will really be very close to what you said. And you tell me if I'm correct in this, but we, like, for instance, we all have the judge where we judge ourselves, I'm not good, I messed up, and we judge others, and then we judge circumstances, and this is like an overall one. But afterwards, there are other saboteurs, like being a people pleaser. All right, I please everybody, but where does it come from? It comes from the desire to be loved. But perhaps as a child, we thought that love was conditional, so we needed to do more in order to be loved. Or some people, for instance, are more controllers. They control everything around them, people, situations. Very often it comes from the fact that as a baby, they were controlled, and subconsciously they said, never again. So actually, I used to be a perfectionist, which is another of these big, saboteurs. And I thought it was great. I thought it was a plus, It's like, but no, I realized that actually it was about, trying to prove something and to get validation. But all this, it comes from strength when we are very small. We don't even realize, but it's good because they help us surviving. But afterwards, the issue is that when we repeat these mechanism in our adult life, and when we use and abuse this strength, and then it becomes a negative pattern. Is it something which kind of resonates with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Freud called it repetition compulsion. And but a lot of therapists have misunderstood that. Repetition compulsion is the nervous system trying to heal. The body knows how to heal, the nervous system knows how to heal.
Mhm.
So if I get a cut in my finger or something and I keep picking at it and trying to get rid of it, I'm going to lose my finger. It's the same thing with repetition compulsion. I may be having the same argument with my partner over and over and over again. That's the nervous system trying to heal. And so we try to get rid of that, we try to fix it, but no, we need to get to the heart of what is the intelligence of this repetition compulsion. And that takes us into the shadow area, the parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at, and we certainly don't want anyone else to see, the shame and the fear and all the
The guilt.
stories that we keep silent. And that's why it's so important to heal in groups of people in community. Um, Community is the currency of the future. And I mean that not just in a financial, but the currency, the energy that we're going to need to make it through the challenging times, the rise of fascism, the breakdown in democracy, the issues of climate change or enslavement or uh, racism, all the things that are happening, the wars that are going on right now are all grounded in ancestral trauma that's been handed down for thousands and thousands of years. And we keep trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. But the key issue is to turn towards the trauma and feel it. And something you said, that oftentimes our adaptation is our strength. The perfectionism that you talk about in yourself is something that has merit, has goodness. But if you have to, and you can't be open to the unknown, and you have to control everything, then you can't grow. So you have to really look at that and see, well, yes, this has become my profession. I've become an accountant or something. That's a good skill for an accountant. But if you always have to have it perfect, then you miss out on a lot of life that is the spaciousness and beauty of just being alive and being in a body. We're One of the issues is that we're moving so fast, and we're in a time of exponential speed with AI and social media, and the transfer of data is going so fast that it's faster than the human capacity to actually live in that speed. So we're experiencing lots of burnout, lots of breakdown, lots of panic attacks, lots of blame and separation. And at the heart of trauma, there are a number of things that are the outcomes of unexperienced trauma. So I like to say that unintegrated trauma, uh, uh, integrated trauma is presence.
Hmm.
So it no longer has a hold on me. Unintegrated trauma is destiny. You're bound to repeat it again and again and again until you learn the lessons that are there to learn. So the integration of trauma is uh, the way that we grow our soul, that our soul's capacity increases, that we evolve into more intelligent, more mature species on the planet. So it's a very significant thing now because the forces of unconsciousness and darkness and control and power over are all spreading through the planet. But at the same time, there's also an awakening of these things. Shows like yours help people to be able to meet and greet the trauma, the unfinished parts of ourselves. So trauma is very simply unfinished past. It means that the cycles that we go through at some place got stopped because often we weren't felt seen, heard, supported, loved, protected in the ways that we needed to
Yeah.
be protected in order to grow. And that's a really important thing. That's the first place, is to recognize um, that these things that I call my problems or my issues or my reoccurring things that I want to change, I never have enough money, or, I'm always fighting with my parents or my wife or all of these repetitions are saying, hey, slow down and soften into this and feel it as much as you can. If it's too overwhelming, then you get someone like me to work with you, or join one of the groups that I have, or read my book, which again I'll put a plug in for my book.
Yes. So if you want, I think you wrote, can you say a few more words about this book? And I think you wrote another book as well, Michael.
Yeah, yeah. So it's hard with this thing,
Traumatized, yes.
but it's Traumatized, a love
Yes.
story, it's called. And you can get it on Amazon. It's coming out in Kindle. It's also an ebook, and whatever the other things are. Audible, and it'll
Okay.
be in Audible this week. Actually, it's just coming. So it's a new book. Um, so this book is it's about 20 chapters, I think, and each of the book is a story from my life. Each chapter is a story from my life, and then there's a reflection, looking back as an elder, as someone who's gone through a lot of changes at that, to reflect on that, and that's a lot of teachings. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a teaching,
Hmm.
which is why people say, "Oh my God, I thought I was reading about you, and I found out it's all about me." So it's really about healing the wounds that separate, alienate, and marginalize us. Um, and it's I couldn't write it. I really started writing it after the trial that happened. I had, because of the gossip and the slander that some people started and didn't even know anything about my situation or my wife, but started saying that I had killed my wife and I was this horrible person. And I actually moved away to Canada. I'm a dual citizen, so I went to Canada for 7 years, and then one day I got a call, said, "Hi, this is Officer Wilson. After 40 years, right? 42 years, we're reopening the case on your wife's murder." So I came back to California and then sat through the trial again of my wife's murder, with the person now being 65. He was 25 when he did the crime. The police never thought it was me, but it was my wife's family and other people that started the gossip. So when I was going through the trial, I went, I got to write this down so people can realize that no matter how bad your history is, no matter what happened to you, it's actually grist for your growth. It's the fuel that we need to grow our soul. And so during that trial is when I started the book, and it took me 3.5 years to write the book, and then it was just published a couple months ago, and just finished the audio on it a couple weeks ago. So yeah, so it's really, our story is not indelible. No matter what happened to you, it's not only not indelible, it's something that allows us to grow when we can embrace our story and bring kindness. And I was beginning to say that the telltale signs of trauma. The first one is a sense of separate self. And I'm an object in a world of objects. And that's very prevalent. And that's at the heart of all of our issues, is this sense of I'm separate. And as you really dive deeper, you begin to more and more sense and feel and realize that we're all intraconnected, not interconnected, not between us, but intra, as in we're all part of each other. We're all part of, that sounds like a bumper sticker, but it's actually really true scientifically that we are all intimately connected. And the first connection, of course, is with the earth. And the only reason we have climate change is we're disconnected from our body. So why wouldn't we be disconnected from the earth? And that disconnection from the body is a trauma response. So when we begin to heal that, we begin to heal not only our personal, but our ancestral trauma and our collective trauma, and heal the future for the future beings, for our children and our future ancestors, I call them. So that's the first thing, is a sense of separate self. The second thing about trauma, symptom of trauma, is a sense of lack, of scarcity. There's not enough. Not just money. There's not enough money. There's not enough time. There's not enough people who think like me. There's not enough smart people. All these different things. There's not enough kind people. But there's just this sense of scarcity, of lack. And it comes from a feeling of lack in ourselves. And so that's a whole area. That also, and there's a lot of work I do around that, basically in the area of gratitude, really. Cultivating a consciousness of gratitude allows us, because what we appreciates, it grows. When we appreciate something, that thing grows. But when we're stuck in the lack and in the survival mode and scarcity, then we live a life of scarcity. It's all around us. No matter, look at the billionaires who don't have enough in their mind. They need another billion. They need to be a trillionaire now. I think we have our first trillionaire on the planet. It's amazing, when people are starving all over the globe and in horrible conditions. So that's a moral injury, really. And then there's a break in space-time. There's a sense. That's the third thing about trauma, is there's a break in our relationship to time. We have a misunderstanding of time. We think there's a past, there's a present, and there's a future, but it's always a presence. So what we mostly have done is taken our story about the past and we file it in our future, and then we keep living into the past, doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results.
Exactly.
And then another one is the need to be in control. When you weren't in control as a child and you didn't get the love you needed, or it was passed down from ancestors, there's this sense of I have to control everything. That's part of your perfectionism you talk about, that sense of needing to be in control. So those are a few of the obvious symptoms of trauma, so that you can recognize, This is something that I need to actually feel into in my body. Meditation and embodiment are crucial to the ability to integrate. And integrate doesn't mean get rid of. Integrate means I felt it and it no longer has a hold on me.
Mhm.
For many years, my story was kind of like I was talking about someone I saw in a movie or something. I didn't feel it. Now, when I speak of my story, I'm feeling it. It's just history. It's what happened. But it does. I don't have any trigger around it, and I have, many of the things that happen as you do that. That you heal the wound between your parents, between you and your parents, your ancestors, and to life. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn from trauma.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's fascinating. I have to say, I very much resonate with you, Michael, very much
Uh,
in all levels, and you see different things which come to mind. I mean, one of the points you mentioned now about, the need for control and people who are anxious. As you said now, you talk about the past, the present, and the future, which actually, I mean, normally, yeah, time is collapsed. And so, but when people, very often the worries, it's about the future. It's about, oh, what's going to happen? And perfectionism as well, you want to plan everything. But when you start realizing that, or embracing the fact that there's so much you can control, you can only control your actions now in the present moment. And what's going to happen, we don't know. The outcome, we don't know. So when we start letting go, and this is really what I started doing on myself, really letting go deliberately, I just told myself, stop worrying, because you know that as well in our worries. I mean, in 95% of the cases, I mean, first of all, we always imagine the worst, and the worst never happens. I mean, but if we prepare ourselves that it might be, at least, we let go and things are much easier. So this is one thing. The other thing I just wanted to share with you is that I, my first kind of perhaps understanding of trauma was during the pandemic when I heard a friend of mine told me about Dr. Gabor Mate. Said, okay, I didn't know him. And I started watching, the episodes of Wisdom of Trauma. And it's so much aligned with what I heard from you, Michael, in terms of, I mean, transgenerational trauma, people having trauma. You said when you were a child, you went into smoking and drinking, etc. But what you were saying as well is that all this, it's really to detach because we cannot live this feeling. It's so difficult to live with that we have to numb ourselves, and it can be alcohol, can be drugs, anything like that. He was as well interviewing people, for instance, like Native Americans, and who have obviously societal issues, but this comes from transgenerational traumas. He was even talking to people, like African American people, and about slavery, and that people were still repeating kind of the habits which were at the time. So this was fascinating, and I suppose it's somebody who I'm sure you must know, well of in terms of what he's doing.
of Gabor Mate?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of my teachers. Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent. Okay.
yeah, no. Yeah, Peter Levine, Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk, those are people that I highly recommend reading their work. Also, looking at legacy burdens, Dick Schwartz is
Mhm.
another person I would pay attention to. Some of the things you're saying are pretty much textbook uh, Dick Schwartz work. The parts, no bad parts of ourselves. So yeah, there's a lot of great people doing wonderful things out there right now, and yet there's still a lot of stigma around trauma, and it's not something. Again, I can't say that too often. It's not something we need to get rid of. It's something that we need to meet and recognize as an intelligence and as a teacher an evolutionary teacher. And it's how we grow our soul, our essence, and pass that on to future generations. So working with legacy burdens, working with ancestral work is really, for me, a very important aspect. And of course, I, taught shamanism for the Shift Network for many years. And, I was fascinated with soul loss. How does somebody lose their soul? What happens? What is soul loss? And that was an important teacher of me to learn how, this fragmentation of our essence has such a huge impact on us, and how important it is to bow down and to understand and to refine our subtle energy competency to be able to work with the ancestors and the ancestral realms. And that's a whole nother level we probably have to save for another time.
You
But
know what, Michael, we'll do another episode with one because I mean, there's so much to talk about. Actually, I'd love to listen more about shamanism, about uh, you mentioned that you went to the Amazon and must have been absolutely a fascinating experience. I heard as well about people using, ayahuasca and, just to, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about this, about the, I mean,
I can
that
share a
way.
little bit. Yeah. Um, I've done many medicine journeys in the jungle and other places. I'm always looking at what's the edge. Where's the edge here? I don't recommend it. And I have to say that, like ayahuasca or just mushrooms or
Yeah.
MDMA, different things that people are using these days, it gives you a glimmer into, but it's like when I was teaching or doing soul retrieval for people, people would come in and have a great experience. I would do a soul retrieval with them, work with them, and they would leave, on a high, feeling like they really got something. But 2 weeks later, they'd come in with the same issue. So psychedelics is awesome, and there's great work being done. I'm particularly interested in the work that's being done with veterans,
Mhm.
the very deep moral wounds that are happening. And so, but for the most people, you don't really need to take psychedelics. Uh, Sometimes that becomes a bypass where you don't do the real work that you need to do. Ayahuasca does take you to the edge of those things, and you find out where your edge is, the edge of fear, the edge of your rage, the edge of, your self-esteem. And then, but you still have to do the work. The drugs
Mhm.
don't do the work. You have to do the work. You have to confront that and be willing to say, I'm committed to growth and to healing, and healing not just myself, but my family system, and to be a force for healing in the world. Those are the people I like to work with, when you really are someone who says, I'm on a path and I want a teacher. Just like when I found Thomas Hubel, it was, I threw out everything I knew. Uh, uh, and I'm 80 now, and I'm still just on the fringe of doing the work. And I'm going back into organizations to bring trauma healing into the organizational field. And I have a year-long process. I'm teaching next year with a couple friends that are looking at bringing this deep trauma work into organizational systems. I'm excited about that because it's another edge. It's a people don't realize how much trauma impacts the cultural system of an organization, um, like a family. So I'm excited about that edge, and yeah, but I'm getting old, so
Well,
I'm
you are
I'm
certainly not. You know what? When I see Michael, honestly, when I see your passion and your drive, I mean, this is really a breath of fresh air. I can, I say it and I mean it. It's really it's wonderful. And you see, of course, what I heard about psychedelics, I said I didn't know anything about this, but it's really my understanding is that it was helping you at least perhaps sometimes to bring back to the surface some of these really hidden emotions. And that
Exactly.
they can some which were so difficult and buried that they needed to. But as you said afterwards, we need to do something like that. And you see, I heard as well that now actually some people say with some particular breathing exercises, you can achieve very similar results, if not better, than using psychedelics because, and you might be, of course, familiar with Wim Hof and Soma breath, and So, what's in your kind of toolbox, Michael? What's the importance of breathing, if I may ask?
Oh, well, uh, the mystics have known about using the breath for hundreds of thousands of years.
Mhm.
It is at the heart of it. Breath is crucial, and the ability to do breath work, the Groff kind of breath work, or um, the person Wim Hof that you mentioned, people like that. It can really bring up all the things that psychedelics can bring up to heal. I've had wonderful breath work. And I have to say, I wouldn't be able to do this work without at least an hour a day of meditation,
Mhm.
of deep inner work, of presencing, and of being able to witness my interiority and track what's happening. So, one of the important things with breath is learning how to be in and out at the same time. How can I be in my body and recognize what's happening in there, and at the same time be outside and be with you? There's two lenses that, reality is playing on. And most people will, if they pay attention, notice that when you feel a threat or you meet someone new, you'll either leave your body or leave them. And
Mhm.
so a big part of the work that I do with people is, can you stay in and out at the same time? And breath is the key to being able to stay in and out, to uh, slow down and honor the wisdom of the breath, because that has always been at the heart of transformation, of transfiguration, whatever you want to call it, of awakening, is always coming back to the breath. Yeah.
It's fascinating. And you see, what I found really, again, fascinating is that how we can get elements from different cultures around the world, but it kind of all comes back together. I'm thinking of, okay, Buddhism. In Buddhism, it's very much about, I remember when I was a child, I saw on TV a monk praying and meditating. I thought, what's that? And for my parents, I don't know, it's like, but when you see the importance of taking time with yourself and really calming down your nervous system and being with you. And now this is coming, obviously, this is part of our practices because we realize how important it is. Another example would be, for instance, the how do you call it, prayayana energy in Hinduism, where you want to make sure the energy flows between your crown chakra and your root chakra, and there's no blockages. All this, it's really fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
So, and so, Michael, if we want, if we'd like to leave our listeners with really some, let's say, three tips in terms of, transformation, what would there be? I mean, and
Hmm.
and the other question will be, how can people connect with you?
Good question. Thank you.
It's two different questions, so.
Um, So I would say that the most important thing right now, as you're even watching this, is to soften, to slow down, and bring awareness to your interior.
Hmm.
That if you make that a practice, everything else will become clear. But you have to slow down. You'll never outrun the fear that you carry. it's faster than you are. So in this particular time, I don't think there's anything more important to do to take that time. In terms of how to get hold of me, my website is Well of Light, WELLOFLIGHT.com. You can write to support@welloflight.com. There's a way on my website that if you're interested in working with me as a client, you can book a 15-minute session to explore if it's a fit for you. I do online work. I am now working on another book, rewriting the old Living a Shamanic Way of Life from a scientific perspective. So I'm focused on that. I probably won't start new courses till February. I do a course called Relational Intimacy. If you're interested in that, it starts with intimacy towards ourselves, towards each other, and towards nature and the planet. And that's another program that I offer. Next year, I'll be doing some courses for the Shift Network again, which is the largest personal growth platform. They do a lot of great work. So I'll be teaching a course on legacy burdens, and that is transforming our relationship with our ancestors. So that'll be happening in March. And if you're someone who is, we're only taking a few people, but if you're interested in the bringing trauma healing, and you're a executive that's impacting a lot of people, we're doing a course through the Pocket Project next year, and you could get a hold of me and find out about that. That's really for people that are already deeply involved in organizational work and recognize that the impact of trauma on organizational systems. So those are some of the things that I'm up to.
Well, Michael, really a huge thanks, for you sharing this beautiful
Mm.
wisdom. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic. And we'll have another episode because there's so much more to cover. But it was, I really hope that everybody listening here, you know, enjoyed it. And, there's so many nuggets here to be taken. I mean, trauma, looking inside yourself, just doing research. Please play this episode again when and because there's so much, and this definitely will transform your life. So thank you, Michael. It was such a pleasure having you there. It was a real treat. Thank you,
It's an
everyone.
honor to be on the show, Daniel. Thank you.
Well, you're so welcome. And thank you, everyone, for being with us. And yeah, just please don't hesitate to share this episode with, because so many people need it. Everybody has trauma. We all have it. So awareness, as Michael said, is the first thing. And sometimes this can be very helpful. So thank you again and see you at the next episode.